Hey everyone, and welcome to another video at Stuff Fixes. Today we will be looking at this, an old carburetor from my generator that needs some maintenance. The carburetor used to be the gold standard for car and motorcycle engines, and can still be found some places today. They do need some attention to run well, so today we will have a look at my 5 steps for maintaining a carburetor. Back in the day, the carburetor was the way to get the right fuel mixture into your engine. They used an intricate network of jets and channels to give the engine a fuel mixture that somewhat matches the engine RPMs. Now, these beautiful pieces of engineering are mostly replaced by smarter computers with some fancy sensors and injectors. However, you can still find the carburetor on older cars and motorcycles, and on some newer power tools like chainsaws, generators and lawnmowers. So today we will be looking at maintaining this 4-stroke carburetor for my generator, using only 5 steps to clean, inspect and tune the carburetor. These are controlled disassembly, cleaning, function check and inspection, assembly and tuning. We start by controlled disassembly. First remove the bowl and make sure you have something below it to catch the fuel. Take out the pin holding the float and carefully take the float and float valve out. As I'm currently lacking a hammer, I'm using the back of an adjustable wrench as a hammer here. Now go ahead and remove the idling screw and the mixing screw. When taking apart the carburetor, always check the current setting and write it down. You can do this by noting the position of the screw and count how many turns it takes to screw it to the bottom. This way you can put the screw back later and use the bottom out position to count the amount of turns needed to get to the same position. After the sensitive parts have been removed, remove both the pilot jet on the top and the main jet on the bottom of the bowl. For this cleaning operation I do not need to remove the choke and the throttle valve. Now we start cleaning the carburetor. First start with the outside, as this has the most dirt. For the outside I use brake cleaner and my excess toothbrush. Just soak the outside and brush off the dirt. Next we do the carburetor channels. These are tiny channels used to equalize pressure and help with fuel distribution in the carburetor, so be sure to clean them well. Best here is to use carb cleaner, but brake cleaner will work in a pinch. Do not use WD-40 or any product that leaves a residue behind, as this might clog the channels. Now the jets and mixing screw. Clean these and make sure all the little holes are open. Especially the idle jet has the tiniest of hole on the top that can clog easily. Finally, clean the bowl, the float and any other screw, bolt parts that you have found whilst disassembling. Now everything is clean, we can do an inspection and function check. Make sure that the mixing screw is in good shape and still pointy. Mine has a bit of a bend to it, but that's okay. Next, check the float needle to see if there's damage there, especially if you had a leaking carburetor before. With these plastic type float needles, there should be a uniform ring around the top. Check if the float itself is free to move, check if the throttle moves freely, and if the choke works as well. Finally, check the float O-ring for damage and replace any damaged parts before assembly. Now it's time for assembly. Start by screwing in the jets, followed by the idle set screw and the mixing screw. For now, you can screw these in all the way to the bottom and we adjust them back to spec at the end. Carefully replace the bowl O-ring and place the float needle and float back in. Give the float pin a few taps and check if the float is still able to move freely. Finally, replace the green plastic jet holder, the bowl and replace the bottom bolt as well. Now that all the components are back on, turn the mixing screw and idle set screw back to their original position. Mount the carburetor back on the engine and reconnect the fuel line, air filter and throttle cable. Before starting the engine, open the fuel valve and, with the engine switch off, pull the starter cord a few times to pull the fuel through the jets. Now turn the engine switch on, set the choke to max and pull the cord firmly. The engine should start in a few pulls. When starting, or when the engine begins to fire a couple of times, set the choke to the middle position and try again. When the engine is running, let it run for a few seconds before switching the choke to off. Tune the carburetor by listening to the sound and looking at the exhaust. With this type of carburetor, there is only a limited amount of options to adjust. With the idle set screw, you can set the idle RPM. Adjust this back and forth to find a spot where the engine runs smoothly. The mixing screw determines the mix of fuel air coming in. Turning the mixing screw clockwise lowers the amount of fuel per amount of air and makes the mix lean. Counterclockwise does the opposite and makes the fuel air mixture rich. When the air mixture is too lean, the engine will start to sound rough. When the air mixture is too rich, the engine sounds irregular. A good way to find the best spot is to start turning the mixing screw with half turns clockwise first, till the engine sound is rough. Then turn it counterclockwise until the engine sound is irregular. Now note both settings and find the middle spot. Adjust up and down accordingly to find the optimum position. Now your carburetor should be good to go again. Let me know if you like this kind of video, and if you have suggestions for video ideas, please leave a comment. Thank you very much for watching and see you on the next one.